We are recorded.
Cool. Anybody get good advice from somebody else on a breakout?
I mean, I love the breakout, and I strongly suggest that we have more of this kind of session, because lovely to talk to the peers. So we talk a lot, like different hypotheses of our project, and we find at some point we need to be kind of like confident to start rapid prototyping, because like we kind of like lay out, like just having that mindset of prototyping like that, starting to give us, okay, what are the steps, so that we are like, there will be a lot of like small details that we might miss, but once we lay this, like starting to have this mindset, that really helps to not miss anything. And then like someone used to say like fail quickly, that is something that like about that rapid prototyping, the beauty of that. So I saw, give me a little more confident that, okay, our team should really think about how should we get it started. Yeah.
I think that whole concept of base jumping will be really great for you guys. How do you make quick choices? How do you get enough information to just say, all right, we're adding this feature in? I get one more person.
Well, I was in the group with Amber, so maybe I can just continue on that thought. And one thing that we found common was like, we're looking at all these surveys, and for example, all of our products were like sustainable, and everything says that, oh, the customers are like willing to spend so much to buy all these things, but somehow we're still not getting that confidence that they will actually buy, because
Right.
it's actually kind of a lot of money, and even at a first instinct thing, like even I wouldn't spend that much. So, where is that like lack of, I don't know, why is it not matching up, and how do you get that confidence?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
You get any advice on that?
well, that's how we
Or
came
is
to
it-
the rapid prototyping thing, and it's like you just have to go in and see if it fails, then it fails, but
Totally.
you wouldn't know until you do it.
Yeah, this might be another kind of durability test. Go look at like products and their cost. Find their customers, and you guys have such a, and I'm sure you've been told this because I remember we talked about this last year, but being able to say, hey, I'm part of Ignition Lab, I'm a rising entrepreneur, I have an idea, your competitors will talk to you. You have like actually this ability to go ask them like, hey, what pricing research have you done? I'm nervous about this price. Will our like their research team probably knows their customers better than when you survey a customer, because it's really difficult to say, will I buy something? Yeah, that sounds great, right? Talking about self-awareness, it's like really hard to know what your future self will do. So it's surveys will not be the end all of your pricing, and a lot of it will be testing. You might have to have a couple of landing pages with some pricing for pre-orders and see what happens. When I do the game pricing, so when we do figure out, is this a $20 game, is this a $25 game, like products is a big thing for us, right? Like who has a similar design and who looks about the same as expensive, how did their campaign do? You guys should look at Kickstarter. That's a really good gauge on similar products.
Session 4, one of our featured speaker is an expert on that and teaches a Kickstarter class. Yeah.
Kickstarters I've done a couple Kickstarters. It's a very fun way to launch a product. So if you think your product is a good fit for Kickstarter, it's a very fun way and you get your money up front, which is nothing wrong with that. Cool. All right. Well, thank you for spending an hour with me. It was lovely to be asked. And I'm pumped for all of you guys to have badass, incredible products out in the marketplace. And I hope that you learned anything. And if you can walk away with anything at all, just believe in yourselves. How annoying is it that I just said that? Believe in yourselves. And I'm going to put that on a bumper sticker. So RJ, I hope that you have a bumper sticker ending too.
Thanks.
He actually has kitten
I'm going to put that on the
posters.
back of my non-car here in Brooklyn. Perfect.
Awesome.
Thank you.
right.
And Jen, right before you go, someone asked in the chat, they weren't able to find base jumping framework
Yeah.
online. And so if you have any resources that help explain it, like you can give it to us and we'll send it
Totally.
out to them.
It's a Go Nimbly naming for the framework. So let me see if I've got anything like a PDF of a couple slides that we've got, and we'll send it over.
You're the best. Thank you so much.
Hey guys.
Thank you.
And right before we start, before we introduce RJ and have him take it over, we have Fumika has something that's super important.
So we are now, since we're halfway through the program, we wanted to get some of your feedback to know how we're doing. And so we have a survey with just 3 simple questions. It won't take long. The first one is whether the program has been helpful, some helpful takeaways that you got, any additional requests that you guys might have for the next upcoming sessions. I'm going to drop the survey into the chat right now.
And this survey, by you doing this, helps us continue programs exactly like this so that we can get funding from the university. So you doing it has a real positive impact to both yourself, because we want to also create an alumni network to keep supporting you and a mentor network for you. And this helps us with the funding. So really appreciate all of you for actually taking the time. It's 3 super quick questions, a yes and no, and then 2 fill out questions.
So maybe we can all come back and we'll let RJ take it away at around 2:03, 2:04.
People have a chance to do it and have like a quick break.
still filling it out. Sorry.
Okay, great.
Okay.
So we'll start it. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Maybe 2 more minutes and then.
Yeah, so we can start at 2:05 sharp.
Yeah.
Great. All right. So thank you, everyone. And without further ado, all right, RJ, I've given you co-host, so if you want to screen share or do whatever you want, the power is yours.
Awesome. Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is RJ Wafer, and I work with emerging technology startups and companies that are pivoting and folks that are, in general, just trying to get to market, right? So that's kind of my specialty. I worked with James a number of years ago and on several projects since then, and we have a very, very good working relationship, and it's always a pleasure, and I'm grateful for y'all inviting me here today. So what I thought I would do is I got a couple of things that I like to kind of tell everybody, and we'll start there out of the gate. Then I'll tell you a little bit about myself, and then I want to hear about what y'all are doing, and go from there. Happy to answer questions and things like that. But I just wanted to start out, and it's something that kind of gets overlooked, especially when you're starting up companies and in the entrepreneurship in general, and in the the kind of ethos of it, which there's this hero logic or this notion that you're gonna throw the whole thing on your back and run, right? And sleep is the most important thing you can do throughout whatever project you are doing. Staying up all night and to get something done that doesn't have to be delivered at 8 a.m. doesn't behoove you, right? Making sure that you're taking care of yourself and healthy is the only way that anything is actually going to get where you want to go. And so, just do everything you can to maintain that, whether it's scheduling in a run every day at lunch, or yoga when you wake up, or just a walk, or time to meditate. Something that's strictly for you, that lets you think, even if it's a long shower, right? It's when your brain is resting, they call it, those shower thoughts, those ideas. When your brain is resting, it's solving problems in the background, right? And if all you're doing is amplifying and stressing out, aside from the fact that it's counterproductive, it's going to make you sick. A small anecdote to that is, the first time that James and I actually worked together, we were at a company called MakerBot, and it was an extraordinarily high growth scenario. And I was leading the revenue charge there. We had started the sales department, built out the worldwide distribution, and taken the company from a very small team to a very large team, and all the way to a $500 million sale. And in the interim, I made myself sick. I didn't have any days off. At the end of the year, they're like, you need to take some time off. There was no time left to take off, right? I had worked every weekend day. I lost 20 pounds that year due to stress, developed high blood pressure, all kinds of things. And I learned a lot, but the main thing that I learned was that wasn't worth it, right? And it's taken me years to get my health back and to get back to where I needed to be. And everything that I've done since then has been better served. The more rest that I gave myself, the more clarity I gave myself, and the more opportunity I gave myself to be at my best, as opposed to trying to wring every ounce of blood out of the stone. Right? So I can't stress that enough on how important that is. And it seems trite and it seems obvious, but it is so important. Right? And that actually leads to the second point that I like to impart. And it's also kind of trite and cliche, but again, important because people forget it really quickly, especially when they get wrapped up in the first part. And that's that you've probably discussed it at some point too. There's an article, I believe it's called Share Your Legos, right? And it's when you get to a point in your project that it's time to start to delegate a little bit, right? You can't always put the world on your back. You can't always be the one to take it from A to B. You can't always be the one to finish, even if it's your baby, your project, your special little portion of it. There's always going to be somebody, hopefully, as you're growing, that's better at the things that you need them to be better at than you are. Give them the opportunity, embrace that, and delegate. You know, part of being an entrepreneur, part of leadership is knowing when somebody else is much better suited to do the job, right? Let them do it. Work with them, talk to them, make sure that the vision's guided towards that, but allow it to happen, right? Because a lot of times you get stuck in this moment where you don't want to let go, and you're like, I'll just do it, and it's just habit forming because we're all these alpha type folks that want to just drive down the road and take everything with us, and sometimes people are better suited to do the thing that you need done. Yeah, it's your idea, but let them run with it. I'll provide the link to the article if you guys haven't seen it. It's fantastic, and it's just kind of a reminder that you got to share your Legos because you're going to build a team and you're going to do a thing together, and the only way to get the whole thing built up is with help, right? So and again, that's part of your mental and physical wellness is knowing when to take a step back and give it the space to build and to bloom, or whatever other cliche you want to throw out there on it, right? So those are the two things that I like to kind of really throw out there. And actually, there is one more, and it kind of goes in with this, and I'll link it back to the project that I'm on now as I kind of go through my background a little. But it's the notion that you don't have to reinvent the wheel, even though what you're doing is new, right? If you're building out your MVP, whatever it is that you're building, odds are it's some conglomeration of things that actually exist in the world already, right? So a duct tape and bubblegum version of it that's pretty on the front and just functional and operational on the back is really where you need to start. The notion that I've got to go out and raise $5 million to get the right coders to build the thing from the ground up, you might be jumping the gun a little, so give your space the room to find out the mistakes that the people that built your tentpole pieces made while you're investigating those, and it'll make the overall and the overarching product that much better because you'll find those issues along the way that help, rather than having to learn them all yourself as you're trying to build the same things, right? So, all right, I'm done with my little bubble of cliches that I'm throwing out there into the world, and because I don't hear anybody speaking or saying anything, I'm just talking into a void. So I'm going to keep going. So about me, like I said, I worked with James the first time at a company called MakerBot. I grew up in technology. It was a family business in the car stereo and electronics. So if it had buttons and lights, I was always very excited about it. And right out of college, I was developing DVDs back in the late 90s and some early web development there during the first bubble. And kind of fiddled my way through a whole bunch of streaming and things like that when broadband first started happening, dating myself on this quite a bit. And my first real foray into a startup was in 2008. And I was part of a group that partnered with David Power, JD Power. And we spun up a company out of a company called Skyguard that we bought from the remnants of WorldCom at that point. And it was a tracking and location device that we were putting in cars, right, for fleet management, things like that. And the banks collapsed. We lost $21 million in 8 days. All of those commitments pulled off the table. And so everything that we had, all of our operational cash dried up in the next few months. And so David took the company, moved it back over and just put it into a less of a risky scenario than what we had planned for it. And so that hurt, right? But, we learned a few things. And, the first thing that we did was there was, since it was a tracking and location device, this was 2008. This was before, iPhones had all of your GPS and triangulation and things like that on it. There was no push notifications, really. All that stuff was real early on. And what I had learned through it on the back end of the programming was that we could geolocate, we could trigger alerts based on where you were. There was all these things that we could do, and that was based on a thing in the car. And all of a sudden, it was in your phone. And so me and a couple other people decided we were going to make a monetization program for location-based services. And this was when things like Dodgeball and BrightKite were still going on, which were the precursors to Foursquare and Gowalla and that kind of stuff. And so we put it all together and had 2,600 groups around the country. Everybody loved it. Nobody wanted to use it. Right? So went through that whole thing, spent a few years building the whole thing out. Everybody agreed to it, but customers just weren't there. It was just early. And they didn't understand rewards coming back to you by location, right? So 5 years later, that was how a lot of those companies were actually monetizing things. But we were even too early, right? And we also decided that we were going to build everything from the ground up. And so I spent a lot more money than I should have. And we spent a lot more time and energy doing that. And when I finally rolled that up and sold off the remnants of it, I really just wanted somebody to pay my health insurance, right? And MakerBot was here in the neighborhood, and I went in there to investigate 3D printing because it was hot and new. On a Thursday afternoon, had a random conversation with Bree and Jenny, the people running the company, and 3 days later, I started the sales department. And about 18 months later, we sold the company for, I forget what the exact number was. I think it was $504 million, something to that effect. It was a rocket ship like I'd never seen. I got lucky. I walked into just a wonderful group of dedicated people who all wound themselves up into a tizzy. I was certainly not the only one that got sick. I was certainly not the only one that went a little mad and crazy. But the education that we got through taking a company from 25 people to 250 people in a year and a half, and from 3 million in total revenue in the 3 years prior to 24 million in those 18 months in cash in hand. It was an experience, right? And so I was able to learn from that and realize in putting, excuse me, in putting together these, the distributor networks worldwide, was that the real key to the success around that, to releasing a product like that, and that I've repeated, and that it just works when you get the buy-in and you have obviously you need the right product, something somebody wants, but when you really support the local groups, right? When you really help the downstream folks that you're working with to build their business and make you a staple in what they're doing, then you create a stream of value across the board, right? Where they want you to succeed and you want them to succeed. And it's all part of a greater good, right? I look at, you have the Amazons of the world where they basically one by one pick apart the marketplace and take ownership of it by doing that. And that's obviously a commonplace thing. And we've seen that happen over the last year or so, maybe a little bit longer when you look at things like Peloton and Tonal, right? And groups like that, where, they didn't go into it to be predatory, right? But all of a sudden the world took a turn, and they have, specifically picked apart all of the local and regional trainers and gyms and things like that too. And so those marketplaces are being decimated by a centralized unit, right? And so we see what that does to the local, right? And it's tough, and it doesn't make the economy better as a whole, although the consumer experience is terrific, right? And so, going down those paths and finding ways to empower the people that you work with and your downstream partners, especially when you're talking about a hard good, especially when you're talking about something that needs service, especially when you're talking about something that needs a level of support and a level of evangelism. The only way to do that without hiring dozens and hundreds of salespeople and support people is to make sure that the people that are in your stream and in your ecosystem are behind you 100%, right? And what the other benefit of that is that you create a level of goodwill that you can take with you from project to project, right? One of the things that I pride myself on is that the people that I work with over and over, right? That we get along well, and we treat each other with respect, and that has to be driven down to the customer level too. And so when you have those relationships and you have those customer relationships, they know that when you call them with the next one, they can trust you, right? And all these things sound obvious and simple and trite and cliche, and I'm a sales guy. That's what I deal in, trite and cliche, right? That's part of the process, but it's for a reason. And I believe in these things. And, to me, it's important that when I get to my next project and that when I call people and I say, hey, this is what I'm working on, they're excited for my phone call. They want to know where we're going or what we're doing. Because I'm always excited when they call me to ask me what they should do, right? And James will tell you, half of the time that we spend with some of our other friends that we've worked with, which is pretty often, is just picking each other's brains. And he gets texts and phone calls from me at least once a week. Hey, what are you doing here? What should I do about this? How's that going? And the check-ins are super important, especially in the environment that we're in these days, right? Because it's so easy to feel alone. It's so easy to be isolated that, you gotta keep that creativity up, and having people to bounce these things off of is super important. And I got a little sidetracked. So, so after MakerBot, I worked with a company called Sugru. I don't know if you all have ever seen this stuff. It's this incredible, weird, moldable, looks like silly putty, turns into, but it's adhesive and it turns into rubber overnight. It's amazing stuff. So I helped them with their initial go-to-market. They were a UK company, and we opened up a bunch of avenues for them here in the States. They eventually sold out to 3M a couple of years later. And then I took on a group that I had met while I was with MakerBot. We actually met at TechCrunch Disrupt, of all things. We were both demoing next to each other, and it was a company called Double Robotics. And you may have seen those iPads on Segway wheels that drive around on by themselves. So it's a telepresence robot. And actually, if you watch the Super Bowl tomorrow, you'll probably see a commercial with it, because Peyton Manning's been doing a whole bunch of them with him on the robot driving around. So we set up the worldwide distribution for that. I used a lot of the same, forward-thinking futurist and technology folks that helped me build out MakerBot. And so we had another win with that. And now with the remote COVID world that we're in, they're all very, very happy that I got them into it. That's another thriving scenario. And the last few years I spent working on with James on this one too, a VR company, working for a fellow named Halsey Minor, who actually founded CNET and was the main investor in Salesforce, to name two of his very large market cap exits. Brilliant guy, kind of nuts. kind of like a lot of the people that I've worked for. You know, it's don't be afraid of crazy people. They're kind of fun. And just don't take anything personally. You know, along my track record here, I've worked with Lloyd Kaufman of Troma Films, JD Power, Bree Pettis from MakerBot, and I just said his name, Halsey Minor. And so, you know, these are all people that in their own worlds have done some incredible, amazing things and have shouted at me in ways that I wouldn't want anybody to shout at me. And I've shouted at them in ways I wouldn't want to ever have anybody hear me say things to, you know, to somebody. Like, it's, you know, it gets stressed, but you learn from their pluses and minuses in ways that you wouldn't expect. And as long as you don't take it personally and get yourself wound up, it can be a lot of fun to work with crazy people. So don't ever shy away from that. But this is about entrepreneurship. So I will roll back a little bit on that. So what I want to get into now, though, is I want to kind of correlate what I've been talking about with the project I'm on now. So I'm working with, of all things, a fitness company now. And they had done a Kickstarter a couple years back, raised about $250,000 out of the Kickstarter. It was very successful. They were able to deliver. The fellow that had started the company, I haven't met him. He's out of the picture now. He just wasn't able to take it from delivery of the product to fulfillment of the intent of the product, which was to have an app and all these other things that would work with the tension-based rubber band type of machine. It's like a universal machine, right? For weightlifting without weights. Actually uses these bands instead of plates. And it's so like, this is worth 20 pounds, right? You put it on and you lift weights with it, and super compact, fits well into a New York City apartment, right? So in coming into this, though, you know, they had to take a break. They had to kind of reset the company, do a rebrand and all that kind of stuff. And so, you know, I've gotten into them now, and we are evaluating the product and having to make a little bit of changes because, you know, at certain points, you know, they ran out of money and the straps on the pedals kind of stink, right? Things like that. So we got to go in and kind of reset. And so one of the things that they were looking at was, what's the timing for bringing in somebody like me to go to market, right? Because they were going to go through all this rebrand, and the new set of product wasn't going to come in until about April. And so the discussion was around, all right, well, you know, you should probably come in around April to help out. And I said, well, I'm not really interested in coming in around April. I said, you know, you are getting ready to go to market. If you wait to figure out how you're going to go to market until a month before you go to market, that's no good. Then I show up and you look at me and you say, well, turn on the faucet, right? You know, it takes a little while to turn on the faucet, and there's a lot of groundwork that has to be done, and you gotta go through and figure out who your market is and what the personas are of who you're marketing to, right? And so we still have an opportunity here because there's you know, we're in a world where there's not a lot of exercise equipment out there because everybody's sold out because everybody's stuck at home. And so I have inventory, right? And so, but I have a limited amount of inventory. So I have to make sure that as we're testing out these products and tweaking the little pieces that need to get tweaked, that the initial people that get it are ones that can actually give us feedback, right? So we're creating a beta program, and we're going to go out and look after our consumer personas, right? Who do we want to have this product and why, right? And who do we think is going to benefit from it the most? And so we're putting together those specific types of programs and beginning to market out to them to seed that environment and have them help us develop the app. And then come March or April, we'll have these details in, and we'll be able to really start our push to market, where we go after the things that we've learned in the last few months. So it's a process, but it's also not as simple as, hey, we finished, let's go. Right. And so it's one of those things where you gotta take a step back, look at everything, survey the land, and give the world a chance to respond to what you're putting out there, right? So that's kind of where I'm at to now. Yeah, that was kind of rambling and all over the place, but that's me in a nutshell. So to that extent, I know I hit on a lot of random things. I would love to hear about some of the stuff that y'all are working on. And is anybody working on any hardware projects? Anything that's a physical good, or is it SaaS? I mean, what are the kind of things we're working on here?
I guess I could speak. I'm working on this lighting system for stages for music performances and other things, which is like controlled gesturally and is sort of I'm trying to create like a DIY kind of ecosystem where I really lower the bar for sort of musicians and people who run sort of small venues and things like that to be able to sort of up their game on that front without having to like buy extremely expensive like custom equipment. It's sort of all done with Arduinos and like open source software and things like that.
I love it. It's solid. I mean, because you can do all those things with available technology, right? Like you can,
but it takes kind of getting a master's degree in this kind of thing to, especially if you're like a musician or something, you definitely aren't. I mean, it's not likely you're going to have the technical know-how to just do it. So I'm trying to like really lower the bar so that people can start creating their own things based on this stuff, but also source the hardware and the materials so that people aren't so that it's coming from one space and people aren't like doing long searches on Amazon trying to find like incompatible parts and things like that.
Right.
Like I've been doing. So
right.
So that's kind of what I'm working on. It struck my interest that you worked with MakerBot in the past, because definitely have been I've come across a lot of things in that space, and it's sort of a similar ecosystem. I'm just trying to bring it away from sort of the hobbyist whose main goal is to just like tinker,
right,
and bring it towards people who have more of a purpose for like a specific purpose for it. And I'm a musician, so that's kind of why I'm doing it. I started off as something for myself, and now it's like, how do I make this more possible for other people?
I love it. And so it brings to mind something that meant to talk about, but obviously I just rambled on for 20 minutes. Is the community aspect of it, right? Because the stuff that you're talking about, that was something that I discovered and was a main crux of it, of any successes that we've had since then too, is tapping into the community to help figure out those hurdles, right? And the maker community that's behind Arduino and MakerBot and Ultimaker is probably a much more active community in that 3D printing world at this point. But the Make Magazine groups and things like that, you can find the folks that have probably built out gesture type call and response and if this then that's for Arduinos that you could then tweak to make work with LED lighting. James and I worked with some. You're muted.
Yeah, my bad. I've done a lot of that, a lot of like searching, like going on forums and like talking to people about how they've achieved the things. I'm sort of at the phase now where I'm trying to like build my own platform for it, or like it's not exactly my own platform, but something that would allow other people, like I can already kind of do most of these things myself,
right,
but like the next step is like creating something that other people can use.
Right.
And so that's sort of where I'm at on the development phase. But like you were saying earlier, that sometimes you don't need your product to be like anywhere near completion before you start to like, making connections with people. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. It's just like, it's not near completion, but gonna I'm gonna be done with it, with my thesis portion of it, at least by May, and then I'm sort of gonna be like trying to find other people to bring in to get knowledge from, to like, in order to, so that it can become more of a collaborative process. Because again, I can't do it alone, like you
Right.
said, like,
Right.
yeah, so.
I mean, to give you an example of that, I remember James and I were at CES, I believe it was 2013. And we were debuting the Replicator 2X, actually, this machine right here. And we had one working unit that was failing about every 15 minutes. And we had that out front. And we had another 15 machines behind the curtain and a half a dozen engineers sitting there swapping out parts. So every time the magic blue smoke would come out of the machine, somebody would elbow somebody else and they'd throw a curtain over it, pull the thing out and bring another one in that we had just fixed. And
Mhm.
that rotation went on for the entire week. Okay. And yeah, I mean, we were never the only ones doing that. That is a common practice. It's a prototype is a prototype, and it's people are buying the dream at that point, and you figure out how to make it work in the process, right? You run those streams together. I don't suggest getting quite that far down the road and showing up at CES with something that sort of barely kind of works, but you know what? You make the most of it and you do what you got to do at that point. I don't know if they're still around, but the basis of it is, I know there's a company called Blinken Labs, which was a couple of guys that came out of MakerBot that were they went into the accelerator program in China through Cyril, and they were doing programmable LEDs. And I know that there was some gestural stuff that they were talking out, or another couple of folks that we had known were doing, so that you could, gesture in a direction and the light would go on and things to that effect. Because there were some installations at Maker Faire a few years back that were showing that off in like this weird bubble.
Yeah, looking them up right now.
Yeah.
Interesting. Thanks for the suggestion.
Sure.
Yeah,
Good luck with that.
Yeah, thanks. Nothing much else to say, but yeah, appreciate the insight. Yeah.
Sounds like a fun project. I'm a huge fan of random lights and making them do things. So when you get it done, love to see it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I could, if I can get your email, I'll send you like the sort of the documentation I have for it so far. It's working.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'd rather see video.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
video.
Cool. Oh, I thought you meant like the write-up. I'm like, I'm not reading it.
No,
I'll take a
video.
look.
It's a video.
Like, I'm not here to get homework. I know it's school.
Oh, no. Sorry, documentation is like, I don't mean boring documentation.
Gotcha.
I mean,
I'm just teasing at this point. Very cool. Thank you. Is it Offer
sure.
or Ofer? How do I say that?
Ofer.
Ofer. Thank you.
Ofer, yeah.
Okay.
Nice to meet you.
Cool. Anybody else? What else we got going on? Who's working on stuff? Or are we bashful? What's going on here?
Oh, I was waiting for my teammate Amber to jump in because usually she's ready. But
Go ahead, Michiko. Go ahead.
well, I'll say a little bit and then you can add.
And what's your name?
My name is Michiko. I can't change my name here. But
Michiko?
anyway.
Pleasure.
Yeah. So our team is taking the byproduct of sugarcane,
Okay.
and that byproduct is called bagasse, and we're using it as a non-toxic material substitute for children's toys.
Okay. So is that like the husk and the whatever the stem would be, or what pieces of it? I guess just everything but the sugar.
Well, I can jump in, but it's it's a fiber residue.
Okay.
Where currently it is used. I mean, you might use it before. It's like right now pressed into like a tableware. That's the most common use.
Oh, like a PLA.
Not PLA, but it's like yeah, sort of like plant-based.
In that ballpark.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so so it is a great it has a great potential to like maybe into lots of different products. And right now, like we spoke to the biggest manufacturer of bagasse products, and mostly they are still doing like a tableware because it's most profitable and most efficient. But we as a team of designer, we really see this into a lots of other like consumer goods, like a toy, which has a lot of problem with chemical issue. So we're kind of in this like new market because there's no bagasse toy exist in the market yet.
Right.
But like we are really wanna, I mean, like somehow making this product sticky.
Right.
Introduce to people, making it sticky. So
Right.
that's where we are right now. Yeah.
So you're looking at being early on in the supply chain, right?
Yeah.
So, and I liken it to PLA just because I did a lot of work, with PLA products back in the day. And, how does it hold up temperature wise? Because that was always the problem with like a PLA spoon. You stick it in the soup and it was like,
Yeah. You, if we are adding chemical to make it waterproof, and you can make it in oven, in microwave, like that holds. But this is more of sort of it lasts for like 7 to 8 years if you are not like trying to put in water, soak it, and trying to like destroy it. So but yes, so as a toy, if you leave it outside, if you try to bake it, it will. So but we are trying to think of that as advantage where we wanted to encourage you like children to kind of like let go of the toy because that like average household own like 70 new toys every year, that you just adding more and more on toy, like, but children really don't need that many toys. So there's a possibility where you get this plant-based toy and then you play around a little bit and then you get a new toy, but that doesn't harm the environment.
Right.
Yeah.
And then just for clarification, our group has a lot of flexibility because we have a strong partnership with a manufacturer. So we were initially thinking of being really early in the value chain and just being kind of a material supplier, but lately we've been moving up the chain a little bit and seeing ourselves more as like an early entrant into kind of manufacturing toys out of bagasse to kind of like break open the market.
Right. I feel like there's probably a lot of grant opportunity on this, especially in the new administration. Everything's moving green on that side, and they're open to everything. The calls to action are all over the place. There's probably a ton of money available. It'd be a bit of homework that you got to do, but going early on in this stage right now where they're trying to figure out where to put it, if you put this idea in the right ear, somebody might just roll with it. And they are actively looking for things to talk about that sound good and make people happy. And everybody's going to throw hemp at them left and right. And that's got its own issues, right? So if you can do something that's an offset of sugar, else too. So if you can give them another opportunity to make money while it's going, while they're, being limited, that might be a pretty good opportunity for you. But I would look heavily into the seed route from the government at this point, because if you can find a position in that and get the right ear, I mean, one order just takes over everything, and you're basically done. You're on autopilot for years. So yeah, I would start there, and then there's a lot state and local, right? And look at the what are they called? The awful people that the lobbyists. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. The lobbyists. Look at the different lobbyist groups like the sugar lobby and things like that, and see what they're going after. And that might be a route to go as well, and reach out to them and be like, look, you need some good press. Think about helping us in this process, right? We're an avenue. When you go in the room and you have your first, second, and third things that you want to talk to people about, make us your fourth, because they're going to lock you out on the first three that you've been hammering them on for the last 20 years anyway, right? When you need a new thing to talk about, let us be that new thing. Right. That's how I would go with that. It's getting into the supply chain there with a new material can be difficult, but everybody's looking right now. Everybody's looking for something different and new. So, and the government, they are, I mean, they've got a $2 trillion spending bill out there that they're about to pass, and a lot of it's going to go to development. So, go pick up that money.
Thank you. That's helpful. Thank you very much.
Cheers. So what else are we working on?
I had a more like general question.
Sure.
In terms of like, so you know how we're always looking at people who've like developed this and then they just sold it to someone else, and then they quickly move on to another project and do a lot of these things. So for example, for Ignition Lab, like I'm working on a eco-friendly food kit, which I did survey of its focus at the restaurant industry. I went in and actually like spoke to the people, and it's kind of like approved. But the thing is, I'm not where I did the research I did it in Mumbai in India. I'm not there anymore. So this is something like I developed the entire thing, and it's like, it's so well developed that I could actually share it, like kind of give it off to somebody. And I also have like this other app, like a party planning, event planning sort of an app that kind of organizes that's going on the side. But I really don't know, like, how do you navigate and how much can you, like, how do these people do it? They kind of move on from one thing to the other, have these other things going on the side, like actually, like,
So
I don't know.
just to recap a little, so you've got two different projects that you've basically built out. They're ready to either be taken on or used, or okay. And how do you get from A to B on it, either to find the right people to take them over or to work with them? Is that the gist of the question?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So, I'm going to roll that back into the idea of community, right? And there's things to, for a while, people were pushing AngelList as a way to find other entrepreneurs and startup co-founders and things like that. There's a group that I'm a part of that I absolutely adore. It's called Serial Marketers. It was founded by a guy named David Berkowitz, not the son of Sam. And that's why he calls it the serial marketer, because he's not a serial killer. But they have a Slack channel. It's marketing focused, but it's a whole bunch of people that are both marketers and generalists, because once you're marketing's all part of everything that you do, right? You're always selling, you're always marketing, you're always touting your own story, you're always the evangelist, right? And what I love about that group, their Slack channel is incredibly active. Every time I have a project or I'm looking for somebody to kind of help on something, or I just need to bounce some ideas off of it, I'll go on there and I'll throw it up on the Slack channel and, say, who's working on this? Who's doing that? Do you know this? Do you know that? It's a really good tool just to kind of see who's around. There's another one that's recently come up. I think the guy's name is Mark Taub that put it out, and it's called Upstream. And it's a networking group where you get, it's almost like speed dating for networking, right? And so they do regular events where half a dozen folks will get up there and you spend 10 minutes with one person, 10 minutes with another, and they keep turning them over, and you get to meet some interesting folks through that. And the meetups. Meetups are a little bit trite, and obviously they're a little bit harder these days, but they're still doing them. They're doing them virtually, just like this, and they go into little breakout groups, and I have people talk. And they are really they're a good way to connect with the community. So those types of environments will help you to find like-minded people. I know that our friends over at I do some work with Dame Products. They have a wonderful group for women in technology. that they're a part of. And then there's an offshoot of that that's a women in hardware group. And I have no idea on how to, what the membership is and all things like that for obvious reasons. But, I know that they're a very close-knit group, and many of them are very successful, and they're always, they seem very open to people approaching them and joining in on that as well. I would look to the community, and part of this is generating relationships and learning the people that you work well with. I mean, that's why I'm sitting here with you all today, is because James and I work well together. And I'm honored he asked me to do this, but at the same time, like, it's, we at times share a brain, it feels like, and that's been cultivated over the last decade. And it started with me walking in and he had stolen my chair. So, community is a good way to find those people, to figure out what those next steps would be, right? And also opening it up so that they can test them out, right? You got to take a leap of faith with a lot of this stuff too. Being overly protective, that's another thing, is one of the things about having an idea, trying to put your idea out in the world and being excited about it, is not wanting anybody to steal it. Well, also think about how hard it is to get your idea off the ground. The rare case that somebody's going to come along and steal it, it's worth the risk. You got to put yourself out there. Thank you for that. Sure. Mm-hmm. And I'll whatever links I can come up with, I'll put together an email and send it over to James to share with everybody on some of these groups and things that I'm just rattling off on. So y'all have a place to at least start from and start clicking on things and looking at some of the random resources that us old folks that have been doing this for a while use. So I think we have a few more minutes. Thank you. Yeah. Absolutely.
I think we have time for one more. If anyone else has a quick question, then we'll dive into what's next. Y'all have to have questions. Somebody here has a question. Get on it.
Well, look, if something comes up or you just didn't want to talk about it in front of people, please feel free to get my email from James and shoot me a note. I'm happy to answer a question privately too, and provide any links and stuff that I can help with. It's an exciting path that y'all are on, and it will be fraught with stress and frustration, and lots of joy and lots of anger, but it's worth it. And you're going to learn a lot from every success and failure. So when you're banging your head against the wall, which I think actually, that's one last thing that I will say is there's recognizing your stage in the game, and the place that you occupy within the process is kind of important. It took me a little while to figure that out. One of the things that I've realized is that I'm an early stage person, right? So I'm the guy that when you just need to get it set up, that's where I come in, and that's where I land, and I'm the most helpful. I'm the guy, you put a helmet on him and you aim me at a brick wall, and I will run in it head first until the brick wall goes down. But I will leave a mess. And then when I'm done and we've got the basis and the foundation built, then you bring in a lot of people with letters after their name and people that are much more qualified to make, exacting financial, long-term, long-tail decisions to clean up the things that I've done, right? And so I wear that badge with honor as somebody that is a generalist that can get things done. I'm not an engineer, but I know how to break things. And I know how to speak to the engineers so that we can figure out a way to fix the things that I and other customers like me break. And so understanding where you are in the stream and your best service to the project is really important. Self-evaluation, self-acknowledgement of your pluses and minuses, and knowing when to, again, it goes back to, knowing when to share your Legos. It's really important. So I'll leave you with that and get some sleep.
Awesome. Thank you, RJ. That was amazing.
Thank you for having me. It's been my absolute pleasure, and good luck, everybody.
Yeah. And yeah, if anybody's heard the phrase "move fast, break things," it's kind of RJ's thing, my thing. Like, that's what we do, where it's like, get in there, build stuff. When it's broken, fix it.
Yeah, but try not to break the real expensive things.
Yeah.
All right. On that, thank you very much. Good luck, y'all. And yeah, take care.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
Cool.
Thank you, RJ.
Cheers.
Thank you. Yeah. So now on to the fun part, which is what do we want to get done before next session? So for next session, our goal is to have all of you at a point where you're ready to discuss finances. So because the next session we're going to be doing like the math that I was sort of doing in the beginning that was really rough. Next session we're actually going to be doing accounting math. We're going to be doing some managerial accounting. We're going to be talking about finances. We're going to be talking about legal structure. All of those things that kind of are brutal and make you want to fall asleep when you're talking about them. Those are the things we're going to dive into, and it's going to be a lot of what you can expect from your life next. So
James, I just want to say, as a Pratt representative, it's probably the thing that students get the least of, which is just and when we've gotten feedback before from this program, students have just found invaluable. So you're being self-effacing and saying it's boring, but it's absolutely essential. And I think because you guys are so talented and are so great at these ideas, but imagine what you can do when you actually understand the finances and the scalability and those concepts that James is so great with, and the speakers that we bring in for session 4.
Yeah. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I know it doesn't sound like it's going to be a lot of fun, but it's going to be a lot of fun. And so to get to that point, everyone here has your surveys. You've done your surveys. You have your information. Maybe you have some follow-up information. Before the next session, we want to refine that down to a point where you understand who that core customer is, how you're going to target them. So for those of you that need to refine your channel, for those of you that need to do location, some of that stuff, let's start to get definitions around that, because what we're going to be doing next time is talking through, okay, now I have that. Oh, how many salespeople? What is my sales plan? What does it look like for me to actually take this door to door? What's it going to cost for me to get this off the ground? And we're going to be doing that in somewhat broad strokes. So the more of a fine comb you have ready to go, the more you're going to be able to apply it directly to your idea. Now, what's not uncommon after next session is going to be people going, all right, I'm kind of lost, because again, Pratt not teaching a lot of economics and accounting. I am available after that to sit down with anyone. I have met students at coffee shops. I've met students I know in COVID world. It's going to be walking, but we've done that, and we can do Zoom. We can do all of those things. So we want to make sure you're comfortable with these concepts. So for next session, I want everyone to be able to speak to a 30-second high level. I want to know who the exact customer is that you're targeting and why they're going to buy it. That includes, if it's a location-based thing, where they are, why they're going to buy it. So like, if it's hospitality, I want to know what the hospitality, like all the hospitality managers you spoke to, what they said. we want to know exactly where those first 100 customers are, because the next session is going to be about coming up with the finances to target them. And then we're going to use those customers in your pitch to actually say, okay, we found our first 100 customers. This is how we're going to turn that into 10,000. Does that make sense to everyone? Does anyone have questions, concerns, thoughts, criticisms, witticisms?
You're muted.
Sorry, I have a question actually. So we are the group that do hospitality thing. So
Yeah.
we're gonna work with the hotel, right? So the franchise hotel brand, luxury hotel brand, gonna be our customers. But actually, like their user group is a real like travelers peoples. So the hotel gonna be our customers, right? Not
So
yeah.
you have a two-sided market. You have
Yes.
two kinds of customers. You're
Yes.
not gonna, you can't get anybody to pay for a thing until you have people that are willing to
Yeah.
show up. So until you have the travelers. So you have two pitches. One is to the travelers, why they need to be on there. My current company, we have the same thing. We have retailers, we have brands. We need retailers to create a healthy marketplace, and then we need brands to actually sell the retailer's product. So it's for you, it's you need travelers to create a healthy inflow so hotels actually care. And you need hotels because the travelers need to go somewhere. Otherwise, they're just us. And so from that end, I think I want to see you have an outreach strategy for travelers. How are you going to get travelers in the door? What is your marketing strategy around that? Hotels, how are you going to target hotels? Who are you signing on? How are you going to service them? How are you going to sell to them? Like all of those things are really critical for you.
Yeah, okay. So we can get like 100 customers, potential travelers, but we definitely can't get 100 like hotel
Yeah.
brand, right? Yeah. Yeah, great.
It's how many customers, how many of your travelers can a single hotel service at any given time? And how many hotels do your 100 travelers need to feel like your service is actually worth paying attention to? So it's like, if a traveler visits 20 places in a year and you want to service 100% brand share for that traveler, that means you need to have 20 different hotels for each of those. So it's like, how are you servicing those markets? How are you being the thing the traveler can't live without?
Yeah, because we want to work with the brand like the hotel already has a large branding. So they already have like hotel in Paris, you know. So we don't want to work with smaller hotels locally. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So
yeah,
it's
great.
yeah, awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else have any questions about the homework before we wrap up? We're also we'll send out an email that recaps the assignment. We'll give you the emails of the two speakers that joined us so that you can thank them if you have any follow-up questions. That would be great. And yeah, so finally, before we wrap, anything else, any final questions or clarifications? And then next time, what's it's 3 weeks from now, I believe, right, Fumi?
February 27th.
Yep, so February 27th at noon, we're gonna have two amazing speakers, and James is also gonna give you that incredible stuff to complement all of your artistic and creative stuff so you can really understand the business side and so that you can create the slides in that 10 pitch deck. And then after that fourth class, we're gonna give you the the role model of how to make a perfect 10 slide pitch deck, which you then can actually prepare for session 5 when you'll run through your pitch. And we'll be helping you the whole way. You won't be doing this on your own. And then after that is when you actually do the pitch competition and get that awesome experience. So anything else? Any final questions before we wrap up? You made it more than halfway through the program. This is about the halfway mark. Congratulations. And, you know, I hope we're getting a lot out of it. And yeah, we'll see you on February 27th. All right.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
See you guys. Thanks.
Thank you.